beauty about the broadcaster Ghostwatch is they would swap the footage. They would swap the footage, so sometimes the figure or spectre of Mr. Pipes was in the picture, in the frame. Other times he wasn't. So, of course, when times he was, people would phone in saying, oh my God, review the footage. You do realise what's standing there. And then, they would react to the empty footage as if, gaslighting the audience. Pretty nasty stuff.
Hi, Misfits. This is Kevin.
And this is Kate.
Welcome to Horrorwood.
That was so sinister.
Good.
Oh. Okay. Happy April Fools.
April Fools.
You know what? I secretly hate April Fool's Day.
You know, as someone whose parents abused them by playing pranks, I hate it too.
Oh, it got sad so fast in here.
It should.
Oh, God.
I remember, I've told the story about, the breaking in, but...
The basement.
Oh. But there were times, there was an April Fool's where it was a Saturday, and my mom came rushing into my room and was like, Kevin, you have to get up. You're late for school. We have to... And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And so I got dressed and, I got to the car and I was like, oh, and then she was like, April Fools.
I mean, if I had kids, that's probably a prank I would pull on them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's cute or whatever, but I was tired.
I get it.
And I still am.
Because I made you come over here so early.
It's okay. I'm in the morning. There was morning light.
Yes.
Everyone was walking their dogs.
Yeah.
People were going to church.
Church.
There's so many churches around us, Kate.
I know. And Frankie
The
hates the bells.
Ooh.
She hates church. And she gets so mad.
Me too, Frankie.
Yeah, I
Let's
get it.
just skip it and go get Italian food.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Oh, you know what?
Oh, Patroni.
We have a new Patronian.
Maggie Smith.
Maggie Smith, thank you so much. This is your shout
This is your shout out. You better get into it. We love you.
That sounded so threatening. You better get into it.
She's already into, or they're already into it.
Yeah, because we don't know their pronouns.
We don't know your pronouns, Maggie.
We don't want to assume.
And I don't want to assume, but thank you, and we love you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your support.
100%. Well, Kate, and
Kevin.
listeners of the podcast, on Halloween night. I'm just diving in.
Oh, I'm ready.
On Halloween night, 1992, at 9:25 in the evening, Britain's BBC One presented one of the most talked about programs in television history.
Did you say 1922?
1992.
92, sorry. I was like, what?
It was a silent movie that was just rediscovered. The program was called Ghostwatch, and it would eventually become one of the great do you remember moments of British television history.
I've never even heard of Ghostwatch.
I'm going to tell you all about it, Kate.
Okay, I'm ready.
So the controversial airing would leave the public terrified and allegedly contribute to the suicide of an 18-year-old boy and reported PTSD in other children and adults.
Oh, shit.
But Ghostwatch has become something of a cult classic to this day.
Okay.
You can find it on Shudder and AMC Plus. And other streaming, I think in Amazon if you buy or rent it.
Got it.
The found footage genre, in my opinion, has Ghostwatch to thank.
Oh, okay. It was like a pioneer of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get in. Let me just reiterate here that what I'm about to describe and talk through was considered real by a massive part of Britain's population.
Okay.
11 million viewers, to be exact.
Oh.
And it resulted in over 1 million calls to the BBC.
Oh my goodness.
So keep this in mind as I'm talking through what this is about and the production.
Yeah.
So this is the story of Ghostwatch. Also, I'm about to say major spoilers ahead. Major spoilers.
Okay.
I'm talking through the whole thing.
Got it.
So if you want to know more about this, or if you want to experience it before I ruin it,
Go watch it right now.
Go watch it right now and then come back to this episode.
Okay, good to know.
Because I have to spoil it right up front.
Sure.
Because it's
I mean, if it came out in the 90s.
Exactly.
They've had plenty of time. Although I have never seen it. I had never heard of it. But
So it's interesting because I watched it yesterday.
Okay.
So my friend Danny, who I'm actually going to reference later in this episode.
I'm sorry, I'm eating my pretzel. Hang on.
Ooh, crunch. I think there's like a character in 30 Rock where like Tina Fey's character like makes a fake award out of a cookie for Jenna, for Jane Krakowski's character.
Oh, uh-huh.
And she's like, it's a cookie. And she like takes a bite of it. And then one of Jenna's gay friends goes, ooh, girl, crunch. That's what I thought of when you put your pretzel.
It's a good dark chocolate covered pretzel.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. So the thing about Ghostwatch, Kate, is it's a mockumentary film.
Okay.
It was not real.
Oh, okay.
It was made to look like a newscast. So my friend, I reached out to him on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Danny. He's how I found out about this.
Okay.
Like when I was over in the UK, he was like, oh, there was this thing called Ghostwatch in the 90s and it scared the shit out of all of us.
Yeah.
I'm going to play his voice memos.
Oh, cool.
In regard to me watching Ghostwatch the first time, so the issue was it was billed as being a serious broadcast, and this was way before reality TV as we know it today, where things are manipulated and things are obvious. And obviously it was a BBC production, so it was very trusted, and it had very respected journalists in it, so like Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, very, very straight man BBC broadcasters.
This feels like a good, I mean, it's probably horrific, but it feels like a good April Fool's Day episode.
Absolutely. This fooled an entire nation for the most part. I mean, there were things around it where you could be like, oh, this is a production, like this is a film.
Sure.
And the slot that it was presented in was also like movie based, like on the BBC.
I see, yeah.
So yeah, I'll talk all the way through it, but I just want to say right up front, it's a mockumentary film. It was not real, and it was presented as a live television investigation into paranormal activity.
Oh, okay.
This goes in line with it being considered real. It was presented by renowned UK TV personalities at the time.
Oh, okay.
They were cast in it.
I see.
As themselves.
I see. So yeah, if you're
watching, you're
yourself,
like, I know these people from like the news shows that I listen to.
Yeah, and they're playing themselves, and that does seem real.
Exactly. So that included Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, Mike Smith, and Craig Charles. So I want to talk about them a little bit more. Their involvement was crucial to understanding the broadcast as something that was completely real by audiences. So Sir Michael Parkinson, CBE, which stands for Commander of the Order of the British Empire, known as Parky for short.
Parky. I like that.
I know. He was born on March 28th, 1935, and unfortunately passed away on August 16th, 2023.
I mean,
Recently.
That's a long life.
It's a long time. He was a distinguished English television presenter, broadcaster, journalist, and author. Renowned for his eloquence and charm, he hosted the acclaimed television talk show Parkinson from 1971 to 1982, and then from 1998 to 2007. Throughout his career, he showcased his talents across various talk shows and programs in the UK and internationally. Additionally, he made notable contributions to radio broadcasting. Regarded by The Guardian, which is a news publication, as the great British talk show host, Parkinson left an indelible mark on the world of media and entertainment.
Wow.
He was a big deal.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Big deal. And then Elizabeth Sarah Green, an English television presenter, served as a co-host on Blue Peter from May 1980 to June 1983.
What is Blue Peter?
I think it's a talk show. I'm pretty sure. Let me just check that real quick because I didn't dive into Blue Peter UK. It's a British children's television entertainment program.
Oh, a kids show.
A kids show.
Okay.
Blue Peter.
It does not sound right. Let's move on.
Dicks. Additionally, she took on hosting duties for the Saturday morning series Saturday Superstore and Going Live.
Okay.
And then Michael George Smith, he was actually married to Sarah Green. They were married to each other. And this is showcased in the Ghostwatch episode. Like they're, presenting as a married couple. Michael George Smith, known by the on-air moniker Smitty.
Smitty and Parky, I love it all.
Smitty and Parky and Blue Peter. What? That's my drag name.
Yikes.
Was an accomplished English television and radio presenter, as well as a skilled racing driver, pilot, and entrepreneur.
Well.
In the 1980s, he gained recognition for his roles as a co-host on BBC One's Breakfast Time and the popular music program Top of the Pops.
Oh, okay.
Tragically, Smith passed away on August 1st, 2014, due to complications arising from heart failure following significant heart surgery.
Ooh.
He and Sarah Green were actually married, and as featured in the Ghostwatch presentation, which I already said. And then Craig Joseph Charles, who was also featured, was born on July 11th, 1964. He is a versatile English entertainer known for his work as an actor, comedian, DJ, and television and radio presenter.
Okay, because it sounds like he's a serial killer because he's got 3 first names.
Craig Joseph Charles. Yeah.
So,
that does sound. I mean, someone look in. Someone
look into that and get back to us.
He gained prominence for his portrayal of Dave Lister in the beloved science fiction sitcom Red Dwarf.
Okay.
As well as his role as Lloyd Mullaney in the long-running soap opera Coronation Street.
Oh, okay.
Corey. Charles also hosted the popular gladiator-style themed game show Robot Wars from 1998 to 2004 and lent his voice as the narrator for the comedy endurance show Takeshi's Castle.
Okay.
Additionally, he showcases his musical talents as a DJ on BBC Radio 6 Music.
So talented and maybe a killer.
Potentially, allegedly, never. I don't know. The narrative of Ghostwatch centers around the purported haunting of a suburban house in Vauxhall Drive, Northolt, Greater London.
Okay.
I'm about to hop into, I'm saying again, major spoilers to the story because I'm going to run you all the way through it. So if you don't want to do that, go watch it.
Oh.
I'm saying it again now.
I picked up on that.
And again.
Dicks.
Dicks. So the entire program is hosted by Michael Parkinson, Parky, with the support from fellow presenters Sarah Green and Mike Smith. Mm-hmm. The investigation aims to provide concrete evidence of paranormal phenomena by focusing on the experiences of Pamela Early, played by Brid Brennan, actors.
Okay.
So there are actors in this as well.
I see.
And her daughters Suzanne, played by Michelle Wesson, and Kim, played by Charisse Wesson, who are tormented by a malevolent entity known as Mr. Pipes.
Oh, Mr. Pipes.
Mr. Pipes. Oh. As the program unfolds, the hosts interact with various experts, including a psychologist named Dr. Lynn Pascoe, played by Gillian Bevan, who offers insights into the phenomena. Viewers witness unsettling occurrences within the house, such as Suzanne's apparent possession and the manifestation of supernatural phenomena. Throughout the broadcast, viewers are encouraged to call in and share their own ghost stories.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Adding to the sense of the audience participation. They put up a number and they're like, hey, call in and do this. Granted, it didn't put you on air to the thing because like this is a movie.
Right.
So the people that called in were like actors.
But
they did have an actual number that you could call, and I'll talk a little bit about where that went.
Okay, I was just going to ask.
Mm-hmm. That kind of calling in added to the sense of audience participation and the reality of it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's a number, like we can call it and like talk to someone.
Yeah.
However, as the night progresses, the situation in the house escalates, with Suzanne disappearing and eerie events intensifying.
Ooh.
So Parky, the older guy, like the big broadcaster's in the studio with the doctor.
Okay.
And they're all like watching a live feed into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And the two daughters, the mom and the camera crew and Sarah
Mm-hmm.
are at the house, like actually in the house. Mike, who's Sarah's husband, is in the studio as well, and he's kind of overseeing the phone call bank.
I see.
And then the other guy, Charles, the who's like kind of the comedic relief, is kind of outside of the house with the crews, and there's people out there like convening because it's like a big presentation. It's Halloween night. People are like out and trick-or-treating.
I forgot it was Halloween.
Yeah,
okay.
in costume. So that's kind of the setup of where everybody is, what
Okay.
everything's happening. The hosts delve into the history of the house, uncovering dark secrets and disturbing revelations. They learn about a Victorian baby farmer named Mother Seddons who committed heinous crimes.
A baby farmer?
Mm-hmm.
What even is that?
The historical practice of accepting custody of an infant or child in exchange for payment. I'll take care of your kid if you give me money. Like, I'll take it off your hands if you give me money.
Oh, so it's kind of like an under-the-table foster situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they learn about a Victorian baby farmer named Mother Seddons who committed heinous crimes and a disturbed individual named Raymond Tunstall who believed himself to be possessed by Mother Seddons.
Mother Seddons just sounds sinister as
No,
fuck.
it's so crazy. As the tension reaches its peak, the house becomes increasingly dangerous, and the hosts realize that they are dealing with a malevolent force beyond their understanding. In a chilling climax, Pipes' influence extends beyond the confines of the house, leading to chaos and terror.
Oh.
The film concludes with a sense of foreboding as Parkinson, the last remaining host, begins to show signs of possession by Pipes. The narrative leaves viewers with lingering questions about the nature of evil and the thin line between reality and the supernatural.
Mr. Pipes was just terrifying. Now, the problem with me is I do not like demonic voices, and as soon as the girl was, lip-syncing the voice to the stairs, I had to tap out, I had to switch off. It really fucked me up.
You never outright get a full-on shot of Mr. Pipes.
Okay.
You have to look for him because he's in passing glance.
I
shots.
see. Yeah.
It's scary. Like, it's really eerie the way they did it. And the whole thing was like, people are calling in and they're like, oh, I used to live in that town and I know the lore of that area. And like, this one guy calls in and he was like, I was Raymond Tunstall's like parole officer or something. And he was really disturbed, and like he apparently hung himself under the stairs.
Oh,
and
goodness!
Like,
but it's not real.
It's not real.
Okay, I was
This
just
is
like,
all
oh my,
fake.
okay.
No. But
Whoa.
it's being presented as a real thing, and so people are watching this, being like, "What?
Yeah,
what?" So yeah, it gets pretty intense. I don't know that anybody like dies in it or anything, but it does, like, the ending is really unnerving.
But when you say the last remaining host
well, we don't really know what happens to them.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Mike is in the studio, but there's this whole thing where the studio starts like, it's like a poltergeist kind of thing. Wind starts like rushing through the studio, and then the older host is just walking around. Parky's like walking around, and then he approaches the camera, and then you hear like the Mr. Pipe voice.
Oh,
yeah, it's spooky.
I mean, it sounds fun. Like, I want to watch it.
You should watch it. You should totally watch it.
I won't tell Matt that it's not real, and we'll watch it.
Yeah. I will say, like, it does do a really great job of kind of convincing you,
Yeah.
And it's done in a way where it does actually feel like a news program. I will say I'd be interested to watch it without that knowledge, just to kind of see it, because I did, I was watching it as a movie.
Sure.
And I think, as a movie, there are kind of some aspects of it that there are some moments, especially like kind of in the acting, where I was like, oh, interesting choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I didn't know, I would be like, oh,
Right.
This is just a regular newscast.
Right.
So I'm going to talk about the conception of Ghostwatch.
Okay.
And this was a lot of this information. There is a documentary from 2012, Ghostwatch Behind the Curtains.
Okay.
The screenwriter Stephen Volk, who wrote it, wanted to pitch a 6-part ghostly horror series to the BBC, attached to producer Ruth Baumgarten.
Okay.
Ruth thought Stephen was a great writer and wanted to develop the idea further. She suggested they pitch it as a 90-minute single for Screen One.
Is Screen One like a distribution?
Screen One's part of the BBC. It's kind of like Screen One is this thing that produces like 10 movies a year to be shown on BBC One. Kind of a segment thing, I guess you would call it. Yeah, so Richard Broke was running Screen One at the time, which was 10 individual films on BBC One, which were heavily scripted and featured famous actors.
Okay.
They did do like a special now and then in place of a direct film narrative, but just once in a while.
Okay.
Episode 6 of Stephen's scripted series included a live broadcast from a haunted house. He said, let's just do episode 6 as the Screen One presentation. Everyone was super excited about this, so Ruth and Stephen went to Richard, who loved the idea. Loved it. He was interested in it and hadn't really seen something like it before.
Yeah.
War of the Worlds came up in these initial conversations. The War of the Worlds radio broadcast was a dramatization of H.G. Wells's novel, aired on October 30th, 1938.
Not the Tom Cruise film.
No. Although I do like that movie.
So when I was a tour guide at Universal, the plane crash is on the back lot, or was when I was a tour guide there. And the thing was, like, because it looked so real, planes flying overhead thought that an actual plane had crashed. Many calls would come in and be like, oh my God, there's a plane down. But we would take the tram through the wreckage, which was kind of interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I don't love it, but that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this aired on October 30th, 1938 as part of the Mercury Theater on the Air series, directed and narrated by Orson Welles. The broadcast simulated a series of news bulletins reporting an alien invasion, causing widespread panic among listeners who believed the events were real.
Yeah.
Despite the fictional nature being announced at the beginning and middle of the broadcast, many tuned in late and missed the disclaimers, leading to hysteria and chaos in certain areas.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can imagine that did not go over well.
I mean, I think this could also be its own episode, this radio broadcast.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more around it.
Oh, wow.
The incident highlighted the power of radio and the potential influence of mass media on public perception, which comes up more later in this story after the airing. So the story of Ghostwatch that we talked about has been likened to the Enfield poltergeist haunting. And I've heard a ton about the Enfield case. It's very popularized and out there. If you want a deeper dive on this, I'll talk about it a little bit. But and That's Why We Drink's episode 56 covers it really well. And I just listened to there's a podcast on Exactly Right Network called Ghosted by Roz Hernandez. And she just covered this from the episode on March 25th, 2024.
Oh, okay.
I love Roz Hernandez. She's amazing. And there's a really great series on Netflix called Living for the Dead.
Oh.
And it's like all queer ghost hunters. And she's like one of them because she's trans. And they go around, and it's narrated by Kristen Stewart. Highly recommend.
Nice.
It's good. Let me tell you more about it. You'll see the similarities in the story. The Enfield poltergeist haunting, which occurred in the late 1970s, is one of the most famous cases of alleged paranormal activity in modern history.
Wow.
It centered around a council house in Enfield, London, where Peggy Hodgson lived with her 4 children, Margaret, Janet, Johnny, and Billy.
Okay.
I sneeze.
Your face! Oh my God. Bless you. I've actually never heard of this poltergeist haunting that you're talking about.
The Enfield poltergeist? Yeah. Oh, it's big. I mean, I'll talk more about it, but it's featured in a lot of... Did you see The Conjuring 2?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That's what that's based on.
Okay. Then I've heard about it. Never mind.
The activity began in August 1977, when the Hodgson family reported strange noises, including knocking and furniture moving on its own.
Don't love it.
Soon, the phenomena escalated with objects being thrown across the room and furniture levitating.
Damn.
The family also claimed to have witnessed Janet, then 11 years old, speaking in a deep guttural voice and displaying physical contortions seemingly beyond her control. There's a clip of her voice. I wonder
is it like this?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
The occurrences attracted the attention of the media and paranormal investigators, including Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair from the Society for Psychical Research, SPR.
Okay.
They spent months observing and documenting the activity, capturing recordings of unexplained noises and witnessing objects moving seemingly of their own accord. Oh, and Ed and Lorraine Warren also investigated
The Warrens.
The Warrens were in town. And there was a lot of media there, too. Like, this was heavily documented in the media. The haunting gained international attention, with skeptics and believers offering various interpretations of the events.
Mm-hmm.
Skeptics suggested that the phenomena could be attributed to natural causes or hoaxing by the children who just were looking for attention, while believers pointed to the possibility of genuine possession and haunting. The case remained controversial, with debates continuing over the authenticity, but this event inspired numerous books, documentaries, and films, including the 2016 horror movie The Conjuring 2, which dramatized the events of the case. So, I feel like The Conjuring 2 also utilized some things from Ghostwatch, just because there's the old man ghost in The Conjuring 2 with kind of the deep voice. And it feels like sort of a representation of Mr. Pipes to me.
Oh, okay.
Which I'll talk more about.
Yeah.
Leslie Manning was brought on to direct the Ghostwatch project.
Okay.
Back to Ghostwatch. Manning had quite a few television directing credits under her belt at this time, especially for the BBC. And the team really wanted the film to work as a drama.
Okay.
So writer Stephen Volk fleshed out the story of a dysfunctional family in London with an absent father. The idea of filming it as reality hadn't really been done much at the time. As Stephen started parsing it out after presenting it as a treatment, he had a challenging time writing that script. The dialogue doesn't have direct subtext, and exposition sort of just goes out the window.
Yeah.
The dialogue had to be naturalistic.
Sure.
And Stephen mentioned he had to convey a ghost story in a real way. Leslie Manning also mentioned having to unlearn her craft a little bit. What would they do if they were doing this for real? How do I make this work for the project that it is?
Yeah.
Were the questions that they were asking. The shooting script had just general names like producer, reporter, etc. But Stephen started assigning names as to who he saw them as. So he would have a famous actor in mind and then start writing it as this character. But those actors that he was thinking of didn't end up getting cast in it.
Okay.
The actors that were cast in this, however, were very excited about the project.
Sure.
Sarah Green, who played the reporter lead at the home, was excited to go back to her first love of acting.
Oh,
okay. I think she was in acting before she became a presenter.
I see.
Something she had started out in. Green mentioned during filming there was a lot of leeway for improvisation and invention as long as they were staying within the plot.
Yeah.
The reporter characters were allowed to react to images and such that they pulled up in real time, too.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure there was plenty of room for improvisation.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
something like that.
Yeah. I think there was I don't want to call the script a rough outline, but there was definitely room for them to play with thing and actually react to different things that they would pull up and show them to kind of contribute to that authentic feeling of a news program. They really put a lot of effort into it. I will say.
I mean, it's a really clever concept.
It's great. Yeah. And I will say they do a really good job of, making it feel like a newscast. They also didn't want to cast actors as cameramen and such, so they asked people from the studio. So a couple of the crew shown on screen include actual BBC technicians Chris Miller and Mike Aton.
Okay.
The team knew that it was going to be controversial from the start, doing a drama as a live presentation.
Oh, sorry, that was Frankie.
That's okay. Producer Richard Broke said it was very difficult to talk to the BBC about it. He mentioned it at a Target meeting with the managing director to talk about projects that were being worked on.
I was like, they met at Target? Sorry.
Oh, no. Target meeting.
I know. I was like, I would love to have meetings at Target.
Target got some hot dogs. Does Target sell hot dogs? I don't think so.
No. In the refrigerated section, the ones that have grocery stores with them.
delicious.
You're thinking of Costco, though.
I am. I've never been to a Costco. I know they sell hot dogs, but I've never been one.
It is Costco, right? Or is it Home Depot?
Yeah. No, it's Costco.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a Costco card?
No.
Oh.
Because I feel like it's one of those places where you have to buy like
buy in bulk. Yeah.
I mean, it's just us here. So
the only time I did that was I got a Sam's Club membership to bulk buy protein shakes.
Oh.
That was around that time I had that surgery.
Oh, okay.
I never want to drink another one of those pure proteins.
Yuck. I don't know how we got. I don't know.
I don't either. Where did that
go?
Target. Mention any store and we're like, products.
Products. Retail therapy.
Retail products taste. Wait, where was I?
The Target meeting.
Oh, yeah. So he mentioned it at that Target meeting with the managing director to talk about projects that were being worked on. So this was just a way for producers to come into the room and being like, so what are you working on? What are you doing? What's coming up?
What's the 411?
What's the 411? Tell me, girlfriend. The studio allegedly seemed like it might be interested in the project for what it was. Mm-hmm. So they were like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Director Leslie wanted it shot on tape. And Richard was like, are you fucking serious? But her thinking was that it was supposed to look like a live television event.
Yeah.
Replicating it entailed filming it on tape and editing it together to look like a broadcast. It was difficult to do because they needed it to look real, but Leslie said it was almost like an explosion when she was putting it together. She's like, it was just all of these little bits of things that I had to just like assemble.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle. Everyone was dragged out of their comfort zone and found a way to make it work at the time.
Great.
As it came together, editors and the team were realizing that this was actually really fucking scary.
Oh.
Like when it started to come together.
Yeah.
The first 45 minutes of it are all about foreshadowing things that pay off in the second act. Richard kept saying that it wasn't scary enough when he was seeing cuts of it.
Okay.
Ruth showed it to a French film critic who laughed at it.
Oh, that's not the response you want.
Well, it's a French person, so, don't... Then Leslie and the producers went back to the cutting room to re-edit the film.
Yeah.
Richard was like, oh, this is like Hammer House of Horror. Like, Hammer House of Horror is like a British horror series. I don't know what to call it. I don't know if it's a production company. I think it's a production company. But they made like a really famous TV show, Hammer House of Horror. I think you can watch it on Shudder. It's just kind of like older 80s spooky tales.
Oh, okay.
And Richard didn't think it was going to work at all. He was like, I just don't. Like, once it all came back together,
Such
he's
a
like,
negative Nelly.
Negative Nelly. However, I will say this was his take on it before it aired. Mm-hmm. And he legitimately couldn't have been more wrong. And he says this out loud and admits it 100%. He's like, I was wrong.
Good.
I was Yeah, nope. Oh, to the number that they showed during it.
Oh,
the
yeah.
phone number. The designated BBC call-in number during that period was 081-811-8181.
Okay.
Which was also utilized for programs like Going Live and other television presentations. Callers fortunate enough to connect were initially greeted with a message clarifying the fictional nature of the show before being given the opportunity to share their own ghost encounters, likely for a potential incorporation into future Ghostwatch narratives. The number they broadcast during the transmission also linked to parapsychologists. Oh. And Ruth contacted a psychic research society during the project's development. Mm-hmm. And the phones during the thing were going berserk.
Oh, wow.
I said like over 1 million phone calls total.
Shit.
Ruth was running between the BBC's phone lines and the other phone bank to the research society saying that it's not real. They had like 20,000 phone calls within an hour. And of course that turned in, I said, to over 1 million. So Ruth is like, oh shit, things are like exploding. People think this is real. They're calling in. They're freaking out on the phone.
Wow.
And people are trying to say like, no, it's not real. This is a fictional
This is wild
thing that's happening right now. Ruth, like in between running between these places, she was like, she passed a group of television techs at the studio who were like watching it on a monitor. Uh-huh. And they're like talking to each other being like, did you see what's happening in Studio 6 right now? Like,
oh my goodness.
It's real. And she was like, what? People were super mad about it and absolutely terrified.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's It's wild.
The next morning after it aired, everyone at the BBC was just like crazy pissed.
Pissed because...
At the people who produced the film.
Because of like the chaos that it caused?
Yeah.
I'll
talk about what
All right.
the fallout. So there were headlines in the newspapers like viewers blast BBC's sick ghost host.
Oh, wow.
And saying things like heads will roll at the BBC. People were of the mindset that something like that should not have aired, and they completely missed the point that it was a drama piece.
Yeah.
It was a big topic at the time, especially for kids who watched it. In the documentary Ghostwatch Behind the Curtains from 2012, several people who watched the broadcast as children still remember it to this day. And people are still traumatized by it.
That is wild.
They thought it must be true because it didn't feel like it had been written, directed, or acted.
I mean, that's a testament to the filmmakers.
Yeah. No, they did a great job. Writer Stephen Volk thought that they would think it was real for like 10 minutes or so after seeing Parky and Green, but then realized it was just a fictional piece. Some of the actors thought the negative reaction was generated by the press at the time, publishing a bunch of bullshit articles about the transmission. Mike Smith, who's in the movie, said that everyone loved it, but the outcry came from the press at the time. So, and then they were talking about like the press and the BBC.
Okay.
And so apparently there's a perception at the time in the early 90s that the BBC gives too much credence to the newspapers and bends to their will. I can't speak to the current relationship, but that was their perception in 1990. It's like the press was like controlling the BBC and what they did because of the criticism. So yes, people were scared. Yes, all of this like crazy shit happened, but how much of it was the press kind of latching on to the negative parts of it and then blasting those out, right? BBC went kind of silent in the follow-up. They weren't super sure how to handle it. And the people that were in it wanted to feel proud of it.
Well, yeah.
But it was hard to do with, the media backlash.
Yeah.
The crew was shocked and didn't quite understand why everyone was so angry. It was a knee-jerk reaction instead of people questioning it. The piece itself is reflective of, and Stephen Volk talks about this, like how people react to media. You're putting something out there that's supposedly viewed as being not real. And so why do we not question it when presented it in a real way through the media? Like, why aren't we saying, like, why aren't we questioning it in real time? Like, as it's happening.
Okay.
We're just being told that this is real. But
that
doesn't mean that it is. How does our perception of the news fit into our outward biases when it comes to moral and physical discourse? Each week, there was a meeting at the BBC called Program Review to discuss the programs of that week. The etiquette of it is that you can be as fucking rude as you want to be.
Oh, okay.
According to Richard Broke. Producer Richard Broke said that people will say if they hate something. And
all right. I mean, fair.
Yeah. Richard took Ruth to this meeting after the Ghostwatch airing. And head of sport, Jonathan Martin, called for an inquiry into the production.
Oh.
He was like, what is this? Like, this was fucking ridiculous. What did you do? But then Richard was like, you're head of sport. You don't know fucking drama.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What are you talking about? Instead of the BBC being proud of the drama, they attacked it. However, but the thing is, other executives praised it outside of that meeting with Ruth and Richard. And they really thought it was amazing. And Richard said, well, how come you didn't say that for the meeting minutes?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just say it out loud?
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. I mean, whoever that executive was.
Yeah, Jesus. So there's also a program called Bite Back, which at the time, public could criticize filmmakers about their work on the BBC.
Oh, that's interesting.
It doesn't exist anymore.
I was going to say.
But people were kind of praising it backhandedly, I think just for the,
Like how so?
Like in the way of like, this was like fucking terrifying. I mean, I think they were just saying how scary and uncomfortable it made them feel, but that was the point.
Right.
So I think they were like,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it was more like praise than it was any kind of like, this really messed me up.
Yeah.
Even though it did to some people.
Oh, no.
During Bite Back, Richard kept reiterating that the BBC execs knew about it. His daughter criticized his appearance to him afterwards, saying it felt like he was talking to someone else instead of the public. But he said it felt like that because he was coming out of these meetings where it's like he's being criticized for this thing. And he's like trying to reiterate in his mind to the executives, like, no, but we told you what this was about. You were interested in it. Like, you knew what this was. You knew.
Yeah.
So I think he was just worried about his reputation and his job. However, because all of the criticism, no one really reviewed it as a piece of drama, like in a review of the presentation. So the controversy outweighed any kind of success around the production.
That sucks.
There was actually talk of Ghostwatch being nominated for BAFTA awards.
Oh, wow.
In the categories in like single drama or most original program.
Yeah.
By chance, producer Richard Broke was on the BAFTA committee and he thought Ghostwatch was a shoo-in, but nothing happened in that regard. It was not recognized in any category whatsoever. Crazy because it got 11 million viewers and a great deal of acclaim later, like
I see.
10 years later. One of the actresses in the film who played the mother Pam, Brid Brennan, said people don't like feeling stupid. There wasn't a super easy way to go and look something up at the time. Like this is sort of like at the beginning or even pre-internet. It was a manipulation in a way. The reaction today would be so much different.
I was going to, when you put it that way, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, she was making a lot of sense with that. Like, they don't like to feel duped.
Sure.
I think. I get that. But getting any kind of attention would be seen as extremely beneficial today, and the BBC would be dancing.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. They'd be like, oh,
this
shit.
is amazing.
Right.
They'd have a whole social media campaign around it.
I know. So, to the character of Mr. Pipes. Pipes. Mr. Pipes is a terrifying character. It's like the fear, he sort of represented the fear of the unknown and became this like scary icon for kids who saw it. The spooky monster who's hiding in the dark.
Sure.
Apparently in the film there are 8 sightings of Pipes.
Okay.
But Leslie said they probably put in around 13.
Huh.
So I'm wondering where people are missing it.
Yeah.
I didn't look that up. I was too into the movie to count how many
Okay, I was going to say.
I was like, oh shit, I should be counting. But then, yeah.
Okay.
I was looking though. I made sure to look in all the background things.
Yeah. Oh, I really want to watch this now.
I know.
Even though I know it's not real. Like, I really want to watch it.
Some are there and some you really got to look for.
Okay.
The producers weren't aware that kids were going to be up that late on a Saturday night to watch it.
That is the dumbest logic.
Well, here's the thing though. Like it was after what's culturally called the watershed, which is the time in the evening, usually after 9 p.m., when television channels showed programming that was not suitable for children.
But it was Halloween. It was a weekend. It was a Saturday night.
Right. No. I mean,
that's just them trying to make an excuse for themselves.
I guess maybe like Nick at Night, IDK. Not at all. The kids were terrified of Mr. Pipes being in the radiator because he clanged the radiator. Like that was one of the things, like the banging on the radiator was like signifying his, presence.
Yeah.
So kids would write in to the BBC and like draw pictures of like Mr. Pipes and say how they were terrified, but it was also kind of like amazing. And some of the producers would write letters to kids to tell them it wasn't real. Like, don't worry about it. They would talk about like, oh, the little girl actress like played this and did this to try to make them like, they were nice in their reaction. They were like, no. Yeah. We'll do anything we can. Yeah. So a DVD of Ghostwatch came out in 2002 from BFI, which is the British Film Institute. And that's when the good reviews started coming in 10 years later. People who saw it as a kid went back to it to relive their experience of it. And now they see it as integral to their experience of media, like as a child.
Interesting.
It was seriously a cultural phenomenon at the time.
It sounds like it.
And creators of more famous found footage films reference Ghostwatch as an influence in their filmmaking. Darren Brown, the British illusionist, acknowledged being influenced by Ghostwatch when creating his TV program Seance. This endorsement was confirmed by Brown himself during an interview for the BBC for documentary Ghosts in the Machine. Additionally, the creators of the Blair Witch Project were reported to have seen Ghostwatch before making their film, although director Eduardo Sanchez stated they were not aware of it until after the Blair Witch Project came out.
Okay.
So that was a rumor.
Okay.
Quashed. Most recently, the team behind the 2020 British horror film Host.
Oh, I liked
credited
that.
Ghostwatch as an influence.
Interesting.
With co-writer Jed Shepard describing Host as their version of Ghostwatch and incorporating numerous references to the iconic broadcast.
Okay.
Which I can see now that I've seen both Host and Ghostwatch.
Because I liked Host a lot.
You saw Host, yeah.
So I need to watch Ghostwatch, and then I have to watch Host again just to see those.
Just to see. So here we... Oh, okay. So the tragic death of Martin Denham, an 18-year-old teenager who hanged himself shortly after watching the television documentary Ghostwatch, has stirred controversy and heartache, with his grieving parents holding the BBC responsible for their son's untimely demise.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. During the inquest held in Nottingham, Martin's mother, April Denham, openly expressed her anguish and directed blame towards the BBC, stating, "I blame the BBC. It's all their fault. They said it was based on a true story, but it was all a hoax." Her sentiments were echoed by Martin's stepfather, Percy Denham, who asserted, quote, "In my own mind, I hold the BBC completely responsible for his death."
Were there what was the reasoning? Okay.
Martin's tragic end unfolded on November 5th when he was discovered hanging from a tree near his residence in Bestwood Park, Nottingham.
That is awful.
The note found in his back pocket bearing the poignant message, "Please don't worry. If there are ghosts, I will be a ghost, and I will be with you always as a ghost." Underscored the profound impact the documentary had on his vulnerable psyche. I read that he was, I don't know how to put it I think he had some, mental learning disabilities.
Okay.
I don't know what those were, and I don't want to guess. Sure. But from what I could read, I think he had
there was an underlying
cause. Issue there.
I see.
According to Percy Denham, his stepfather, Martin had been deeply engrossed in the program, almost hypnotized by its content. Quote, "He was really into it. He was just gone. I had to keep asking him if he was all right." Percy recounted. Martin's behavior following the broadcast reflected his distress, as he insisted on keeping his bedroom light on, a departure from his usual habits. Moreover, he was perturbed by noises from the central heating pipes in the house, echoing elements found in the Ghostwatch program, Mr. Pipes. So despite the family's accusations and the tragic circumstances surrounding Martin's death, the coroner refrained from making any reference to the program during the verdict.
Fair.
Following the inquest, a Dean Hanley, a BBC solicitor, expressed condolences to the Denham family, acknowledging the sorrowful ordeal they were enduring. Quote, "It's a very sad time for the family, and we do not think it would be helpful to add any further public comment."
Sure.
So yeah, there was no direct linking of that boy's suicide to Ghostwatch. It just, in my mind, I think it was something that occurred kind of parallel to one another.
That's kind of my thinking.
And I don't know that you can I'm not sure you can necessarily blame the show for it. And I'll get into it a little bit more because there were actually some scientific studies done on kids who had watched Ghostwatch by this company that said they had PTSD. I'll talk about it later.
Let's go back to this case, though, because with the parents saying that he believed it was true and not just a film of fiction, I feel like legally it's awful what happened. It's awful what happened,
yeah, but they did what they could, they were very upfront afterwards of it, no, it's not real.
Yeah,
it's not real.
I mean, it's tough, and I feel for that family, but at the same time, I feel like it's just misplaced anguish.
I think so too. Which absolutely, what they went through was terrible.
Yeah.
Producer Ruth Baumgarten said in the documentary I watched, because they did bring this up and talk about it a little bit, she said she wouldn't have kept making films if that boy had actually committed suicide because of the film.
Sure.
So we're going to go into the future now.
Okay.
Into the future. Time keeps on slipping.
Slipping.
So this is Ghostwatch kind of after it's been, praised, after the DVD came out. Like, this is still a big deal to this day. Like, and, it's on Shudder. It's a big acclaimed horror movie kind of that stands on its own today.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's the Ghostwatch BTC YouTube channel that was launched on February 21st, 2008, inviting fans to share their Ghostwatch-related stories and recollections.
Oh, interesting.
Plans for a retrospective documentary had been in motion since October 2007, gradually gaining momentum, which eventually did culminate in that documentary, Ghostwatch Behind the Curtains. Rich Lawden, the documentary's creator, disclosed the project's origins at a screening in Bristol, UK. Additional content included a Halloween message from Stephen Volk and a new article by lead actor Michael Parkinson. The project expanded with the introduction of web forums and social media pages between December 2008 and February 2009. So it started to blow up online.
Okay.
Things, people were like, we have new forums that we're able to talk about this and our experiences with it. And at this time, there's not the negative aspects of it have sort of fallen away. So it feels like later everybody's able to sort of dive back in and be like, we made this great, cool thing.
Right.
Let's talk about it in a positive light now. So the documentary was completed and released in 2012 and then released on DVD March 2013. Accompanied by a companion book featuring interviews and production insights. I wish I would have been able to see that. I'm sure you could probably find it on eBay.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But, it wasn't released in the U.S. I don't think it got a U.S. release. So if you buy a UK DVD, have fun flipping over your regions.
Yeah.
In 2016, BBC Store announced the inclusion of Ghostwatch and the retrospective documentary in its Frightmares collection. The National Seance event commemorated the show's 18th anniversary, involving fans simultaneously watching their recordings and sharing their experiences on Twitter. The tradition continued annually, culminating in the 2020 National Seance live stream hosted on YouTube, featuring special guests associated with the original production.
Okay.
Screenwriter Stephen Volk penned a sequel to Ghostwatch titled 3110, 31/10, featured in his collection called Dark Corners. The story follows Volk's involvement in a fictional 10th anniversary edition of Ghostwatch in 2002. As part of the narrative, Volk explores the sealed-off BBC studio space where the original show was filmed.
Ah, that's fun.
Yeah. Accompanied by a team affected by the broadcast a decade earlier, Volk delves into the eerie aftermath of Ghostwatch's legacy. The story garnered recognition, being selected for the year's Best Fantasy and Horror 2007 20th Annual Collection. And nominated for prestigious awards, including the Horror Writers Association Bram Stoker Award.
Oh, cool.
And the British Fantasy Award for Best Short Story in 2006. That's kind of everything on Ghostwatch that I have. But what I want to do now is what I found interesting is people talking about their experiences with this. And so I went on Reddit because there's a lot of Reddit threads of people sharing their, experiences of actually seeing this during the air. So from DocSave0103 on Reddit. I was about 10. We lived in the 3-story terraced house, and my parents were hanging out in the basement/kitchen. I took advantage of this and snuck into their room to watch it on their little TV in secret. I caught nearly an hour of it before having to sneak back to my room when they came up to go to bed.
I just love the idea. It was this little kid. It's
I'm going to watch it. Ooh. I basically watched the build-up without any context of it being fake and not seeing the overblown ending, which I still think was the perfect way to squeeze the maximum scares out of a wee lad. It didn't help that most people in my school had a similar experience of it, having either been sent to bed when it got scary or snuck a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
The camera catching pipes in the pan still chills me.
Pipes in the pan.
Pipes in the pan. From JPOR01 on Reddit. I was around 9 years old and remember it terrifying me. I spent months struggling to sleep afterwards.
Oh, wow.
Shitting myself whenever the pipes made a noise because of the boiler or heating.
Oh.
For additional context, I lived in a council house where the previous occupiers killed themselves in a suicide pact.
Oh my God.
One in the back bedroom and one in the back garden in their car. Guess who had the back bedroom?
Oh, shit. This poor kid.
I know. My brother's dad made sure to milk my terror for all it was worth.
Oh.
And that's the story of the Ghostwatch TV presentation on Halloween 1992 in the UK. This was a huge for the found footage mockumentary style of film. It's an inspiration to a lot of filmmakers, also Paranormal Activity. It's still a big deal, still talked about, still celebrated.
Yeah. I had never heard of it. I cannot wait to watch it now. I'm so eager.
Yeah.
And intrigued.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really good.
I am going to need you to give me your login
I was going to
info.
say, I will.
Because I don't have any of those streaming
I can
services.
give you Shudder for
Great.
sure. So you can watch it. But Ghostwatch.
Ghostwatch.
Go watch it.
If any of you have seen it, by all
Let us
means.
know,
Yeah, write it in those comments. And all those people who had ghost stories regarding it or their own ghost stories that were calling in, could you write them to us so that we can include them in our listener story episodes? Because we need some more stories, y'all.
Come on, send it in.
You can do that by emailing us at
horrorwoodpodcast@gmail.com.
or leave your comments on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at
Horrorwood Podcasts.
And you can be like Maggie
Smith
and jump on over to Patreon at
patreon.com/horrorwoodpodcast.
I mean, now when I watch it, it's totally obvious, but 12-year-old me was completely fished in, and it was very, very clever because they so